And welcome into the very first edition of the NEWera Podcast with your host, CJ, your fearless leader. Well, fearless leader? I don't know. Anyway, first guest for the first episode, Mr. Will, the handler of the biggest bitch in the known universe, Mr. James Stahl. Will, thank you for joining me.
I wear that title proudly.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
And I don't want to die from gorilla sex. That's the only thing I'm supposed to say, right?
Right, yeah, it must be said. So we had the anniversary show last night, or this morning, I guess it was put up. I just posted my thoughts on it in the feedback thread. I know you did as well. Anything else that you didn't mention in that thread you want to talk about?
Yeah, I would just say I echo pretty much all of your comments in that long post, which if people haven't read it, yet they're for some reason listening to this instead, they should go back and read that because it's makes a lot of really good points. I know I said it, I touched on it in my feedback, but I didn't really expand on it. This show felt very much not the first pay-per-view of the year, but more like an end to storylines in a way, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not really 100% on how I feel about that.
Well, I said to you on AIM this morning, I said it after reading it, it felt more like a special version of a new TV rather than a pay-per-view. It felt like the Slammies, more so than WrestleMania, is what it felt like.
Yeah, I think I honestly have to agree with that. I like the award show segments, but other than the great little things that were happening to build Corinne versus Romeo Styles, there wasn't anything that built toward any of the matches that were there. And I think I would have liked to have seen another Eric Donovan segment, to get me pumped up for him versus Bomb Track. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I could have tried contributing something more with James Stahl. I think I would have liked to have seen another segment sort of hyping me versus Hyde a bit. But at the same time, I don't think there was the invitation to do that for this one because I already knew that the segments were going to be just the presentation of the awards.
Well, they weren't just the presentation. I mean, we weren't saying like, hey, don't give us any segments because we're going to be using, the awards. But the fact that no one turned them in. But I think at the same time we have to be vocal with the rest of the Fed and say, we have to go one-on-one, or I have to. I don't know who's going to do it. I guess me, if I'm saying it, the one who swings the one who issues the sentence should swing the sword. Game of Thrones. You're welcome, answer.
Yeah, I got that. Don't spoil it. I haven't read past the second book. So.
Okay, I'm only in the first book, but I've seen all 3 seasons. But we're not going to talk about that. What was I saying? If we want people to be on hand, and then a big part of it, we have to be vocal with them, and I have to go on AIM, or someone has to go on AIM and talk to these people every week and say, hey, what do you want to do? We're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. How do you think that's going to work? I was telling Shane that I would talk to him about Trenton Page and see what we're going to do with the NEWera title. And I said that, 2 weeks ago, and I just been not able to find a minute. I mean, me and Shane work, on different schedules. He works night shifts and stuff like that. So it's hard to get a moment, to talk. And then we ended up not doing anything with Trenton Page. I mean, I don't even think he was mentioned in the show. He's the North American champion. We have to find a way to get everything involved and make it all work with continuity. It all has to be one big thing. It can't be just a bunch of sections of different shit that's plugged together.
And that's another issue I had with this pay-per-view was the lack of North American Championship and television championship matches, or at least hype. And I mean, I understand we are definitely at a lower point in not the quality of competition, but certainly the number of people and just the pool to choose from is certainly lower than I remember it being in a very long time.
Yeah, well, and you know what? We built this card for the show based off of a lot of different, feuds or mini feuds. We had the DJP TGD thing, a lot of these were, I mean, if you look at it, okay, I'm looking at the card now. So we have, the main event, Donovan Bomb Track, Priest Raw, which I guess was just plugged in because Purity, Stahl versus Hyde, which is, these are feuds. You got Leon and Tommy, the tag team match. Nightmare's busy with himself. Jean-Pierre and Jones. And then we have all these new guys. We have Maximilian and Ben Jackson, Blade Alexander, Dominic Brancato. Those are guys that we could have given an NA title shot, but at the same time, none of them have earned it. And that's kind of the point I was making. I got mad at Cam when I found out that Trenton Page had won the title without ever winning a match prior to that in the Fed. I was looking at the fact sheet and I'm plugging in the fact that he won the North American title. And when I go to his record, he's 0-2. And now suddenly he's the North American champion.
I mean, yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that one. But at the same time, Challenger Series was definitely that elimination match, which is still my vote for match of the year, although I forgot to vote. Shame on me. My vote for match of the year, because I thought Purity wrote that and did so many amazing little things to tell stories between each competitor. And one of them was really pushing Trenton Page something huge.
As an underdog?
And as a competitor to Nightmare. So coming out of Challenger Series, it made Trenton Page look like he's going to be the next in line for a North American title shot. Mm-hmm. I think not necessarily enough was done to build to that. I would have liked to have seen a build to that match at Anniversary rather than Dan deciding he wants to do what he wants to do with Kendrick Gates, which is whatever, and totally up to him. And I respect his decision.
Yeah, it's like I said in my post that, again, everyone needs to go read. But Dan's free to do what he wants with his characters, and if he wants to do it, that's on him. I'm not going to say no. Don't do what you want to do. Do what I want to do. But at the end of the day, you look at it, and we just literally had no one that could challenge Trenton in a match and justify it in a short means. And then at the end of the day, you're sitting there with a pay-per-view with the second highest championship being defended in a throwaway match with no build-up. So at the end of the day, I didn't want to do it.
I'd rather it not be. I think it's a better move to just not have it defended rather than have it defended in a throwaway.
And if I had been able to talk to Shane in the last 2 weeks and work out a plan, maybe we could have had some segments or something build, towards the next thing. But I wasn't able to connect with him. We didn't get that conversation that I've been looking for, and he's been looking for, because he's been messaging me, but he messages me in the middle of the night, and I wake up and I message him back, and he's not on anymore. So we're just kind of missing. Yeah. We're just missing each other here.
Stop living in California. It's really inconvenient for us.
Yeah. Plus staying up until 3 a.m. and then waking up at 11. So I hit you guys. I hit you in the afternoon and then late at night over there on the East Coast. But if we had been able to have that conversation, maybe we get a couple segments for the North American Championship on the pay-per-view. At the end of the day, we didn't get a conversation. We had nowhere to go, and it kind of just got lost in the shuffle. And I think we need to work hard on these next shows before the Brawl to really bring that back into play. And also the TV title, because the TV title is still vacant, and we have some ideas thrown out there that some ways that we can get it back into the fold. We're throwing some ideas out. I don't want to reveal any of them right now, obviously, but they're in there. We're thinking about them, and we're not gonna throw out a big clusterfuck match with 8 people and say winner gets the TV title, because that's making it a crapshoot. That's making it look like, honestly, every time we do a big clusterfuck match, to me it feels like we have no idea what to do, so we're just gonna throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks, and then go from there. So I prefer not to do those big matches obviously the Brawl's different because the Brawl is a way to reset the whole thing and bring new people into the fold. Brawl's different, but those endurance challenges or the key to excellence or anything
I
like
was
that.
actually going to ask about that. I was sitting, and it was weird. It was something I hadn't thought about until you just started talking about the vacant TV championship, and you mentioned clusterfuck matches, and I just thought, are we having a key to excellence match at some point this year? Is that, I don't know if that's in the cards or whatnot, the way things are looking.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, obviously I don't know for sure, and I'm not the one that's holding all the plans for this, but I would say yes, because the key to excellence is not a title match, it's a shot at a title match. But at the same time, is I want people to be justified in earning these opportunities to even get a title shot. I want people to be justified in what they're doing. I don't want to, have Kenny Frederick coming in out of nowhere in the losing a dark match, and then all of a sudden I put him in the KTE where he potentially has a chance to win the, a shot at the North American title or what have you. I don't want these people coming out of nowhere. I want legitimate people, Money in the Bank style, obviously. I don't want to be WWE, but I want it to make sense in the way that theirs makes sense. And the people that are getting the shots are legitimate contenders. It's not Yoshitatsu coming in and going in the Money in the Bank and then almost winning it. These are legit established people.
I would like someone, last year's key to excellence was Trevor Hyatt. I remember that very clearly. I would like someone of a better quality than Trevor Hyatt to win this year.
Well,
although I honestly I judged that match, and I still feel that Trevor Hyatt actually brought just a weird sort of A game that earned that particular win.
A fluke once in a lifetime. I don't want to shit on him, but we all know his issues and my issues with him over the time he's been here and then left and then been here and then left, and I've done the same thing. So
I certainly have well-known issues with him myself. We've not gotten along very well. But that one, I would say he deserved that win, but did absolutely nothing with the key to excellence afterward, which is very disappointing.
And I think, and maybe it won't happen this year. Maybe it will. But if it doesn't, there's going to be a reason for it. And if it does, there's a reason for it too. We're not just going to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks this year. I really want plans to be built and plans to be followed. And if we have to change stuff because shit happens, like with Purity, having some real life issues and couldn't go at this pay-per-view, we'll adjust with that. But I want shit to be planned out.
Well, it's interesting because usually the pay-per-view we just had, which is usually Evolution,
right?
That's where the key to excellence match has been in the past. And with the London Brawl, I don't think it makes sense to have the key to excellence match because you're already having the Brawl.
Yeah. Maybe, you can't do it there. I think it would go later in the year.
Maybe Bloodlust. Maybe even, honestly, I think the key to excellence match would be really good at Vindication. I think that would be interesting to me, at least.
I think that makes sense. But again, we have to have the roster for it, too.
Right. Which, again, might happen by Vindication because there's always this cycle of e-fetting and roster-wise that I always find is...
Yeah, it always picks up in the spring and summer.
And then in the fall, it's very... almost dries up. That's the hardest part to get to. Like I remember when Greg and I were running things, and he got very worried during the fall, and I had to tell him on multiple occasions. I was like, Greg, don't stress out too much. I'm telling you, this is just how things go. We drop off in the fall. If we're still struggling in the spring and summer, that's when you got to get worried. But
But you know what? I wouldn't even call what's happening with the Fed. I wouldn't even call it struggling. I mean, yes, it's not the peak of where we were when Mark was in charge 2 years ago. It's not the same thing, but it's far from struggling. I mean, we had over 40 role plays for this last show, which, for other feds is a fucking miracle. And for us, it's kind of, whatever. We've seen better. We've seen twice as many, so I wouldn't say we're struggling at all. I say, it's the obvious ups and downs of what you always go through with anything. And we're just in one of those periods of adjustment. and we're going to make the adjustments and we're going to keep going. I think we're fine. We have Romeo at the top who, you know what? Let's talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
Romeo finally gets over that hump, retains the title for the first time.
I'm so glad he did that finally.
And I had a big role in that actually because they came to me yesterday and they sent me a message and they said, "Hey, we voted on that match and it's tied and we need you to read all 6 of them and come up with a winner." And so that was a lot of pressure on me reading them. And oh man, did they take a long time to get through.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I still have to go back and read those. I think I read Romeo's first role play.
I like that one. That was probably my favorite out of the 6 of them.
Yeah, but I'm eager to go back and read those. I always love Chris's stuff. I always especially love Chris's stuff when he's facing me because that just seems when he happens to bring his best stuff.
You guys seem to have this sort of like Triple H Rock sort of connection, you know, like rivals for such a long time, and then
the Rock Triple H rivalry so one-sided individually?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not saying. I just mean like, in terms of like the nostalgia of it. If you think back, you think of Rock, Austin, and those 3 guys pretty much cycling through each other. This guy with this, and
yeah.
It's kind of like that's you guys, and it could have been Outcast too. You could have had that Stone Cold Rock Triple H connection with the 2 of you guys and Outcast.
Very, very easily. I think we were.
I think we were going towards that. Really, we were
going towards that definitely. Yeah. Because I know, geez, this is gonna get me really sad, but I know that my plans with Mark were always pretty big coming out of the London Brawl.
Mm-hmm.
It was gonna be, I think at some point I was supposed to feud with Nikki Blaine.
Mm-hmm.
That which should have been obvious at that point.
Yeah. And that gets Romeo involved as well,
Right.
They're always there next to each other.
Like, Mark and I were building toward a big James Stahl Outcast submission match that we really wanted to do, which is why when he beat me one-on-one the first time, it was the first time James Stahl lost by submission, and that was the start of the build toward that match.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the planting of the seed towards that later down the road. That was just such a fucking damper on everything, I mean, obviously.
Oh, well, yeah. It's never going to be the same, but I'm pretty proud of the way we recovered from that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A lot of strengths, and,
if we had folded right after that happened and just shut down, I don't think anyone would have blamed anyone there either.
No, it would have been totally understandable.
Yeah. And so the fact that it's still going now, almost 2 years later, that's saying something.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say, though?
Oh, I was going to say, for all my faults in running it, I was pretty happy with us getting through that first fall, which was a really difficult touch and go at times sort of moment, and everybody then stepping up, going that fall into that spring was really great to see. And now we're chugging along as best we can, and I'm proud. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished still.
No, I think we've accomplished a lot, and even if Mark was here, getting 4 years out of an EFED is something to be proud of. It's something that doesn't happen very often. Especially now. I mean, when I started this game, there was a lot. I mean, maybe it's just a nostalgia thing where it looks like there was more going on back then, but I honestly think there was more going on back then, rather than today. I mean, look at it now. You look at Rough Cut, and Rough Cut's basically dead. Yeah. There's no one there,
It's weird, I want to say that about a year, maybe 2 years ago, that it was like we were at a high watermark. I've never seen so many feds, and I've been at this for 7 or 8 years now. Mm-hmm. I've never seen so many feds, and so many feds working together. I mean, just what CWC was doing for all the shit that we gave them was great. Same with the experts. Mm-hmm. And damn, Visionary Wrestling could have been good if I had more time. It had so much potential, but and it's just so many people working together, and now suddenly all of the feds that were really a part of that are just gone. APW's gone. Code Red Wrestling, they were getting so big on the scene, and then they just shut down out of the blue. That was the weirdest thing. VWF, that's what it was. They're done. TFWE's done. It seems to me like there were so many great feds, and right now the only people left in the game are us and SCW and PW, and Warped is still going, but Warped is they're just such their own little thing, which is great for them. And Joey's a great guy, but they're not the major player that there used to be, like APW all over the place, and now they just did Survive and Conquer, and I think they're doing the WrestleMania at some point, maybe. But it's just very, very different landscape than where we were just a short time ago.
You look at like VWF, they were around for 15 years, and that was run by Triple B, who I think is like, he was an admin at Rough Cut, and I think CWC, he was in CWC too, mm-hmm. and they were like the end all be all of feds for a while. If you went to Rough Cut and you went to the top 10, for the most part, you were joining them, just because they had the boards and they had the roster and they had the commitment level from their Fed head, that everyone would look towards them. And now they're closed, but 15 years is a long time.
I think it's possible to be too big. And I talked to Mina about this when APW closed its doors not too long ago. They were huge. Uh-huh. I mean, easily the biggest roster of any EFED that I was. I mean, I don't know how big VWF was at their height, but APW was running 3 fully stocked shows every cycle.
Yeah, and so were we, and at one point we just got too big too.
But but like bigger than us. Sure. I mean, like with 3 very separate huge rosters. Mm-hmm. Like they were doing for their main show what we would do in a weekend sometimes. It was just an amazing size of the roster. Their pay-per-view cards were like 20 matches long, and stuff like that.
2 pay-per-views on the same show.
But I think when you get that, the problem is when you get that big, every EFED has a bad apple or two. Mm-hmm. But inherently, when you have such a huge roster, you're going to get more bad apples.
Right.
That are going to cause more problems, and if you're not really on top of it, it's easy to let those small fires just get out of hand if you're not going to put them out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what happened in APW.
And that's what happened. That's what happened. When we started out, when we had the Rat Pack around, is we had these guys and separately by themselves, good guys that are willing to work hard and write, and they'll help you out with matches or whatever, and they're cool guys to talk to when they're by themselves, but when they collectively got together with 4, 5, 6 of them, it became a problem, because you can overtake a Fed if 6 of you come together to do something, to do something, especially something stupid like on the out of character board. You can completely destroy something like that just by being dumbasses for a day.
We had a very rough moment where in a day, something like that I felt almost happened. That was which, I mean, I don't know if we want to name it by name or name any names, but I think we both know what we're talking about, where we had our almost walkout. That I don't know how many people we ended up. I don't even know what the final count of people we ended up losing was after that thing, because it was like 8 people are leaving. I was running around on AIM just talking to everybody individually, trying to figure out where everybody was, and calming everybody down. And then, all right, everybody's staying. No, 3 people are leaving. No, they're staying. 1 or 2. I don't even know what ended up happening. But that one just hit me so out of the blue, right? Like which was the frustrating thing about it.
that was the frustrating thing about it, is it came out of nowhere with all these accusations, and it felt like it had been building up for so long, and then, but it's like, why now? Why now is all of this stuff coming, you know?
And as I told the people who were involved, I understood a lot of where they were coming from in many of the aspects. But and I told them, if you have a problem, how do we know you have a problem if you don't tell us what the problem is?
Exactly.
Like you can't expect us to fix things, and admittedly, stupid things were done that should not have been done, and but they weren't done in any sort of openly malicious way. They were stupid mistakes that could have easily been fixed, but because there was this sort of animosity underneath for whatever other reasons that nobody was talking about, once that one thing happened, suddenly powder keg erupted.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we had one person in that I think was stirring the pot quite a bit, and that's what also led to a lot of trouble. But
but you know what? It got taken care of, and I think the decision that we made was the best decision we could do moving forward. And I mean, it's not an issue anymore. I mean, we're talking about it now, but I think everyone's moved past it, and we're fine, and we're on to different things.
And now I'm really excited for the London Brawl.
Exactly. Let's talk about that. We have that coming up. I don't know what the exact, is that April or is that March?
It's whatever's 2 months from now. So
April.
April.
So is it after WrestleMania?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would have to look on the exact date on that.
Here, I got it right here. I'll pull it up.
It was almost next week.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. April 13th. So
April 13th, yeah. So is that? I think that's just before WrestleMania, isn't WrestleMania like the 20-something?
That sounds about right. I don't know. April 13th at Wembley in London.
I actually like this location, this time of the London Brawl.
At the start of the year?
I think it's a really smart idea to put a pay-per-view between the London Brawl and Vindication. I think of the ideas that Kim has had, that is definitely his best one.
What is our WrestleMania? Do we have, I thought, because I could have sworn it was Evolution.
See, I always assumed WrestleMania was Vindication. That might be because that's when I came in, the first one. But you think about that, well, you made that sounded more arrogant than I meant.
Yeah.
I meant to say not because I was on it.
That's the James Stahl coming out in you.
But that's because that's the first pay-per-view that I got to experience, and the first pay-per-view that had build to it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, there's certainly a lot of things you can say that makes Vindication the biggest. The obvious parallel being London Brawl being our Royal Rumble.
Yeah, so obviously.
Of course, Vindication is the
WrestleMania because the shot, it happens at Vindication.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's in the summer, but it's not really our SummerSlam, because once again, it's that idea of the seasons in e-fetting works so differently from the seasons in actual wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So where you have that summer show, that's where you're going to inherently get your biggest boom.
Yeah,
so that's usually where your
spring summer isn't more important than your fall winter.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, I know that the very first, so Vindication 2 was the first pay-per-view that I was here for, and that pay-per-view not only had Jimmy versus Outcast for the title,
mm-hmm.
but it also had Troy Turner versus Dean Jones, which was the Icon versus Icon match, and it was the end of Legion version 1.
See, you just saying that right now made me smile. Like, thinking of, that was probably, and Vindication 2 was probably our best time, honestly, because we had all those old school guys there. Then we had this new group where you came in. I think Selena came in right around the same time you did.
It was me, Selena, Doc Holliday. was definitely the core of that part of that group that I remember. And then I think like just after Vindication, Romeo came in.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I don't remember him being involved in Vindication, but I think just afterward.
I
And I
think
always
I
that's
think that was like a new era of us when everyone got their in character Twitter accounts. Like, and I don't think it became anything big, but it was definitely a changing of the guard, so to speak.
it definitely felt like it's our new generation, right? Like
Yeah,
you put it in WWE terms, you have your Hulkamania, and then suddenly Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Undertaker, and that's what's happening. And
yeah.
I feel like in a lot the same way that was us coming up. And then we had that until I don't know what this is where it gets a little foggy. Like Nikki Blaine was she in really a new class or just in the end of that old class?
No, you know what?
Um,
I would say she was end of that old
right, like the
class,
last of that new class to come in.
but you know what? She wasn't. I wouldn't put her on the same level as those other guys. I mean,
She could have been potentially.
she could have been.
She was so over, but unfortunate circumstances being.
And I'm still not convinced that she wasn't someone in incognito. She still could have been one of those guys. Who knows? I still don't fully believe that she was someone separate. But I don't know. And but I would never put her up there with Troy Turner and Dean Jones and even Jimmy. Those guys were there, and it's not like it's not those guys came together here. Is a lot of the guys from the original part of New and then the second tier were people that had been with us for many years before we even started. Guys like Jimmy and Dean Jones and Troy Turner and Disturbed and Brad and Rig, all those guys we'd been fedding with for years, and even guys like Rolls and Spencer, and so it wasn't like it. And they were the first era because there was already an era before that.
Mhm. And one of the interesting things about New Era is the way the roster changes so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why we're able to survive and be as successful as we are, because you see these new groups of people coming in. So, right, you're talking about, I think Romeo and I are the last of that second tier that are actually still around. Am I wrong on that one?
I mean, for the most part, yeah, I think you guys are.
Yep.
I mean, give or take, Ryan's still around.
Right,
Cam.
but I don't know about you, but for me, I always consider Cam and Ryan in that first group.
Sure, I would too. I probably would too, because they were here the whole time. Ryan's been here almost since the first show. Disturbed was here from the first show. Cam came in, and I think in the second or third show.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been around. Anson's. You know what? I would put Anson and Greg between the old era and your era. They kind of came in the middle.
See, I would say if I had to split them, I would definitely put Greg in era one. But that's because he was already world champion. He was already world champion when I got here.
Yeah.
When I got here, but Anson I would see more on I guess my side. I don't know why.
Well, it's weird. It's weird because I mean we've only been here 4 years, and here we are talking about all the different eras. I mean, how long does a freaking era last? A year?
Yeah.
So to put it in those terms is kind of weird for me because it's just one thing that's always evolving and changing, and a lot of people are coming and going. And yes, we had this tragic thing happen 2 years ago that really shaped what it is today, and it's completely different. I mean, obviously a lot would be different if that didn't happen. So much would be different. But
now I think totally new roster with that next third transition, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, tiers. I don't know. Was Eric Donovan, Tombstone.
Yes.
Then, like there for me, that's the lead. And then Purity came in,
The one that
and
stands out to me is
it's
Tombstone.
huge.
Tombstone kind of set this new era.
Yeah, Tombstone more than anyone else, and then Eric Donovan, who eventually, obviously, went on to surpass Tombstone, which I don't know if we all saw. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
I'm still
Uh,
shocked that Tombstone's never been world heavyweight champion. Um,
I can we talk about Chris now?
yeah,
You know, because he's the guy I'm currently feuding with. Um, really excited about doing. I feel like it's weird because in a way, this feud is a long time coming, but at the same time, I don't think anybody would have thought that it was going to be James Stahl versus Hyde because a year ago it was clearly building towards James Stahl versus Tombstone.
on the other side of the spectrum too, with Stahl being a super heel.
Hmm.
You know,
And now suddenly being a face, which I'll talk more about in a moment because I definitely want to talk at length about that. But
yeah,
I mean, honestly, at the time, I also when we were when I was going to face Tombstone, and I was sure that was going to happen, because Eric Donovan deserved that Secret Santa win, but I did not think he was going to get it at all. And I still think the RP that he won that with is hands down my favorite Eric Donovan RP of all time,
mm.
which was his first one for that tournament and just set the pace and never looked back. It was great. Um, but I always thought Tombstone had this potential in a Tombstone James Saul feud for a heel turn, which never got to happen, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really excited to work with Chris, and I already know we're planning our rematch for the London Brawl, which should be even more epic than this one was. And as I said in my feedback, this was one of those rare instances where I really had to admit defeat as soon as I was reading his stuff. Most times when people beat me, I go, okay, I mean, I get it. I can see why they beat me. Role playing is subjective. I think my stuff was better, but I get it, and I'm fine with that. Sometimes I'm not fine with that. Um, but with Chris, I read the shoot in his third role play, and I was like, yeah, I threw up a softball with my second one that I was, sort of rushing to get up before the 24-hour deadline, and he knocked that third shoot out of the park, and that was my favorite from his three RPs. That bit of it, just really
it's
gold. And I read
it's
that, I
always,
knew I'd lost.
it's always good when we get those top tier guys finally feuding. You know, I mean, for you guys to be around as long as you have and to not really had your own blow off feud.
It was weird. I mean, I felt like that was me versus Tombstone was as much as the 6-pack challenge that I won was, a 6-pack challenge. I felt like the biggest story going into that was clearly me versus Tombstone. And then you would have thought that coming out of that was going to be me versus Tombstone.
Yeah.
But then Eric won the Secret Santa show. And you know what? I was very happy with my feud with Eric. I thought that would have been my vote for feud of the year. Honestly, it was between the two of us. I thought we had good stuff, even with our last one where he beat me at New TV. That was fantastic. And then I always love my feuds with Romeo Styles. We have this great sort of like you said earlier. We have this great on again, off again feud that can just pick up at any moment.
Yeah. It's just it's a never ending feud that you're just putting pieces together over the years.
And I think it's always interesting. You feel like sometimes you might run out of material, but then we take a few months off and we always have really fresh material.
See, that's what I was going to ask you about is when you're in a feud with someone, and I don't, because I've been out of the game writing for so long, and I kind of see this from a booking standpoint now, and it's when you're booking a feud. I mean, you know how like WWE does it, where if you got two guys in a feud and then two guys in this feud, you have them tag team for 6 weeks before they have their blow off match. They're all always connected and they're always facing each other. Now, my question is when you're in a feud with someone, let's say you're feuding Romeo, would you prefer to be having your feud, but in the weeks building up, you're separate, you're in different matches than him, or is a tag team setting okay? I mean, do you not want to waste too much of your material on the way to the pay-per-view?
That's a really great question. I think tag team is fine. I think it gets overused sometimes. You get into like Teddy Long syndrome.
I mean, I'm thinking the perfect example would be, Hyde and Kieran versus, Romeo and Stahl, if you're going to
See
do it
that one
that way.
though. I mean, I don't know how. I can't speak for either of the Chris's or Ryan on that match, but I thought that one was a really good storyline wise.
I mean, I
At least for
no,
me, I think certainly that match I needed it just more interaction with Hyde just to build that.
uh-huh.
And I think also that one, I think Romeo versus Corinne needed that interaction. But you get sometimes where it's me and Romeo feuding, right? And it's like we don't. I know Chris will agree with me on this one. It's like, yeah, we don't want to be together every week
Right.
because then we really are running out of material.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I just get not just running out of material, but I get burned out. You know?
yeah,
Like if I see the same name on the card every time, I'm just like, this guy again, Like how often,
example of
how
that
much do we have to do this?
example of that with me and Romeo is after the London Brawl triple threat match before Vindication, we were fighting each other a lot, and but in like tag matches, and like I beat him in the tag match, and then James Soul would beat him down, and then whatever. But it just seemed like we were facing each other, every show, and then we had a great. I loved both our role plays for Vindication, and I'll say hands down, I thought we were the match of that show, and role play wise, I thought we were the best role plays from that show, and I'm not afraid to admit that. But afterwards, just I don't think we could have faced each other until the London Brawl and had that same impact. I don't think we could have done it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think facing him for the London Brawl was probably my favorite. That was honestly my favorite, even though I lost. I thought I did some of my best role play work was in that match. Although I liked my bloodlust stuff too. But then, and I'll be honest, Vindication, when I won and I beat him in Purity, role play wise, like it was good, but I felt like none of us. I felt like that was Purity's match to win because Romy and I were both so spent on material for each other.
Yeah.
And I was honestly surprised that Purity didn't win that match because I really thought she had great material to work with, and I had a little better material than Romeo to work with, but I was sort of disappointed with my Vindication RPs. But then 2 weeks later, I had already written Romeo. I made the mistake of sort of writing Romeo off, which I should never do, because I was just like, we're obviously done with this feud. And then suddenly he busts out what I thought was the role play of the year as his first one to respond to my role play, one of the very few role plays that I got up like first week. Like it was stupid early. I think I was like one of the first 2 or 3 people to role play for that set of shows.
Is that why you don't now? Because he put out such a great RP because he did it early?
No, it's because I work. I work a lot more this year than I was actually working last year.
Yeah.
But he blew it. That was, remember, I talked about how when I read Hyde's third shoot that I knew I lost this match. When I read that role play from Chris, the only other time where I've ever said, shit, no matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to lose this match. And I thought my second role play for that match was certainly better than his second, and I thought it was the best role play I had done since the London Brawl, and maybe even better than my London Brawl stuff. But his first one was just, and it's a shame his first one got deleted because that one really should have won RP of the year hands down.
Oh, it's one of those ones that got lost in the.
Yeah, one of those, and that's very disappointing because I think if people had taken the time to reread that, like it was amazing. But yeah, where were we after that one? Ask me another question though.
What was I gonna say? I just had something and then I lost it.
We got off on that.
You know what I was gonna comment? I was gonna comment on the fact that, you know, you're mentioning all these great RPs, and it's like I've been so out of the loop because I've been gone, and now I'm getting back in. But you know what? I'm not reading as much as I should be, and I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of stuff here. So I'm gonna try to get back into this, you know, reading everything as it goes. Maybe not all at once, because that was ridiculous yesterday, reading all those role plays. So let's hopefully, as a collective group in the staff, we can, you know, do things much earlier and not put it off until the day of the show like we did yesterday, which is why it looks so sloppy, and you know, the continuity's not there, because like I said in my feedback, if we can put it all out there earlier, and that, you know, that goes both ways. It's the staff and the roster. If the roster can put out role plays before the deadline day, you know, and I'm not calling it sandbagging. I'm not calling it sandbagging. I'm just saying, you know, shit happens, and when you have a deadline, you're going to push it to the deadline, because why not? But if people, you know, if I can see, if we're having a match that's, you know, Adam Jones versus Purity, you know, and they're, well, I'm just throwing people out.
I don't know why I laughed there. I was, see, you said Adam.
Yeah.
And I didn't put, he's always good doctor to me. So when you said Adam, I was thinking name-wise. So I was thinking,
Black Man.
Yeah, Black Man, and I know him best as
Jake Hammer.
Jake Hammer. There we go. I beat him as that.
Oh,
yeah.
Fucking terrible.
So that's why I laughed.
Okay, well, you know, we can go. Okay, sure. Purity and Jake Hammer. That's actually better. That's actually better for me. For my point here, is that, you know, Purity versus Jake Hammer. Let's, you know, Purity just had a week off. Some shit happened, and who knows if they're gonna show up this week if we book them. You know, same thing with Adam. You never fucking know if Adam's gonna show up. But so, when we are like, oh, we have to write that match, but I'm not writing that match until I know I have to write that match. You know what I mean?
Right. Otherwise, and that's the same, right? Because you don't know whether or not, if it's going to be a squash match and I'm going to write 2 paragraphs, and I'll do that,
at the end when I have to.
10 minutes and be done with it.
Right. I'm not going to write this epic match that's back and forth with a lot of close falls if I don't know that they're showing. So it's a catch-22, because we want the show to be written early enough that we don't have to work so hard on the day of the show, and we can put up the results faster for everyone, you know? It's a catch-22 because we want to be able to do that, but we can't knowingly, I mean, we just have to trust everyone to show up and be excellent if we want to do the work really early, because I mean, if I sit there and I write, look, if I'm booked for one match, and that's a lot for me, because I don't fucking write matches, you know? If I'm booked to write a match and I write it on the second day, I'm going to put all my effort into that match, because that's the only one I'm doing, you know? And if I put a lot of effort into it on the second day and I finish it on the Wednesday of the first week, and I'm like, sweet, my match is done. Now I kick back until the results are done. But then by the end of the week, I realize these guys aren't fucking showing up, you know? And the end, maybe someone drops one on deadline day and the other guy no shows. Well, then the match I just wrote is just worthless, and I wasted my time. You know? So if people could show up, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm just saying if it would be awesome if they did. And I'm not going to put any new rule in place that says you have to RP on the first week and the second week, you know, because then that
well, then you might as well be running a.
Yeah, exactly. It defeats the purpose of doing it every 2 weeks. Yeah. But, you know, it'd be great if people could get it up early. That way we could get our shit up early, you know, and the whole thing just runs more smoothly that way. Because like I said, the sooner we have our matches and our segments up in our staff form, the more eyes we get to see it, you know, and we can call things out like, hey, why is it like that? No, it should be like that. Actually, I kind of want this. Hey, wouldn't it be great if we add this to it?
Yeah.
See, then you're improving the whole product right there.
See, the thing with me is roleplay-wise, I work Monday to Friday. So I can roleplay pretty much Friday and Saturday, Sunday. But
there's two of those. But there's two of those every.
Right, which is what I'm saying is, if I miss that first weekend for whatever reason, I can't finish something.
Yeah.
Again, because it takes me a long time to write my roleplay.
See, I'm curious. What happens if you get booked on Friday night? You have to roleplay in the first weekend.
Well, that would be why I tell people don't book me for Friday night.
What if it's not your choice? Who knows? It might not be your choice.
Well, I mean, there's a fair point, but I'm just saying at least the way I'm now. In which case, I suppose if I was booked on Friday night, I would find time to get something up somewhere, and it would not be nearly the quality that I could do for a.
Interesting play there.
I would. I mean, if I don't mind it, but just know that it's going to be more like my second role play.
Threatening me with bad quality. That's how you get by. That's interesting.
I'm not saying that it would be bad quality. I'm just saying it would not be the same quality. Like, I'll just be honest. You look at my role plays. My first role plays are consistently rated as the best of my however many I'm going to do, and that's because that's where I have the most time.
I get you. I'm not saying everyone should, and you're the king of sandbagging, so I'm not going to expect you to do that.
Hey, I somehow managed to squeeze 2 solid ones
on deadline day.
Plays in the tapes and still make that 24-hour deadline.
Man.
I thought my second one was rushed, but not the worst thing I've ever written. So
you just excel in mediocrity.
Sure, let's go with it. We'll just leave that right.
I'm not saying everyone has to do it. I'm saying it would be great, and it would help everything. I think the entire thing would run smoother if more people showed up in the first week. Are they going to? I have no idea, but it would be great. And I'm one to talk because I have, now I have a character, and if I want to, if I want people to follow something, I should lead by example. So hopefully I'll be able to get one up in this first week. If I get one up by tomorrow or Wednesday, I'm a fucking stud, and that's all I can say about that. But it's probably not going to happen because I'm a lazy asshole. At the same time, everyone just needs to understand that, the sooner everyone role plays, the sooner we can work and work confidently and know that our work is being put to good use and is not going to be wasted.
Listen, you know what they say about New Year's resolutions, right? Is like you're supposed to say it out loud and tell people.
Yeah.
And then you go out and
now there's pressure.
More motivation to do it.
Yeah.
I'm calling it right now. I am going to role play. My first role play will be up by Sunday, by midnight Sunday going into Monday on this first weekend. Okay. My first role play will be posted.
I'm going to join you in that, and I'll say mine will be up too.
My second one, not until I can't
until deadline,
in good conscience say it won't be until 11:55 on that Saturday, because then I have my I'm working all week. But this first one will be midnight Sunday.
Yeah. And I'll
do the same cards thing. Go up today.
I'll do the same thing. I'm facing Mark Jones this week, Anson's second character. I want to work out something with him so we have like a plan. We can work off each other on our role plays because it's always a lot more fun that way. When you're not, you're competing with him, but you're also competing with him. And that's the most fun for me is having an opponent that I can work off of as well as work against. And so I'll talk with Anson. We'll see what we can do there. And hopefully, I'm gonna stick with your pact as well. And I'll say my first one will be up in the first week for sure.
And I'm hoping at least for London Brawl. See, pay-per-view role plays. I'm actually much better at getting that first one up much earlier because I know I have to write 3. Right? So London Brawl, you can probably expect a much earlier.
Also, with the Brawl play from me. Because there's 30-something people or whatever. Do we stick to 30? I don't know how many we do. But
I don't know if we're going to even have 30.
You don't know. I got some, you know what? I got some cards hidden on my sleeve here.
I might put out some feelers within and try to get some people in here.
Oh, do not worry, my friend. I've got some stuff hidden up my sleeve that will excite you.
Black Man, number 29.
Get the fuck out of here with that. But we've got some.
I didn't put him at number 30. I could have done that.
We've got some special stuff coming back for the Brawl. I'm excited for it. I can't reveal it yet. I've been working on it with some people, and we got some shit going on.
There's one person I want to come back. I don't know if I should name it.
Go ahead. Let's see.
But I've never made any secret, at least to Greg. Greg knows how much I want to face Troy Turner in a match.
Oh.
Really bad. Like that's one of my.
Yeah.
That's one of my, he posted in the out of character board a few days ago, and I got super excited and haven't seen anything since then.
He did, and you know what? As soon as I saw that post, I went and I went on AIM to see if he was on, and he wasn't on because I really wanted to talk to him because he's one of those guys that I would absolutely, obviously love to have back. The thing about it is you can't. It's tough because like the Royal Rumble, they have Kevin Nash come out and it's like big, shocking, or like Chris Jericho come out and it's big and shocking.
But you can't have that because you're posting role plays, so it inherently ruins that.
I'll say it again. You have to have that shock and awe of the week before they go into the brawl, so they have a chance of doing something in the brawl itself. At the same time, I said this to you, and I think our call got cut off while I was saying this, but I said, but what if you have someone like Troy Turner who comes in and we don't announce anything, and then on the day of the deadline, he posts this massive role play that just cuts down everyone. Now you all have one day on the absolute deadline day to scramble and come up something against Troy Turner.
That would be interesting.
Because suddenly he's in the match and you didn't know,
I'm not sure how fair that is.
No, I'm not saying like you have to beat him or he's going to win. I'm not saying he automatically wins just by posting.
Right. No,
but I'm saying it is an interesting, it's a little extra hitch in everyone's step.
There's a certain amount of advantage to being able to do that, though. Like there's like to know who your opponents are and be able to shit on everyone, and then that's why people hate sandbaggers, right? Because theoretically, then you're suddenly scrambling to try to write something.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get what you're saying.
But at least with sandbagging, you know that your opponent might very well, who your opponent is, so you at least have something to work with before they write anything.
Yeah.
But, when you surprise someone like that, there's a big advantage of,
Well, just thinking that was a complete hypothetical.
Right.
But like, let's say
Troy Turner's coming back, everybody. It's gonna happen.
Let's say that did happen, though. At the same time, it looks that way, but at the same time, it could be, Mike's just coming back for that one match. He just wanted to have a little fun and surprise everyone and come in. Obviously, we're not going to have him win it. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that it's not fair, but at the same time, it doesn't matter if it's fair or not because he's not winning. You know what I mean?
If you told me that Mike was only coming back and role-playing for that one match just as a huge surprise, and he was just going to come in and then put people over, that's a totally different...
See, but I wouldn't tell you that. Tell you that. I'd know that, and I would let him do that, and you'd say it's not fair, and I'd be like, well, tough luck, but then as soon as the match is written, I don't
think I would actually complain in that moment anyway, because I would just be so excited that I'd be like, holy shit, Troy Turner, awesome.
See, that's what I mean. That's the point of it, though, is to get people excited about it.
I'm just saying that I could see it from that other side of people seeing it as something.
No, I get it. And now we've just ruined that moment, and we can't possibly do it because we just talked about it so much. That now people are waiting for it.
Come back, Troy. Vindication. We'll do it then. Just come back then.
Anyway, speaking of the London Brawl, we got it coming up in April, our next pay-per-view. You plan on being a big part of it, I know.
I'm going to win it.
I plan on being a big part of it.
That's my plan. I'm going to win it.
But
I haven't won it yet. I can't. I get closer every year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm not sure I get closer because I think I finished number 5 like the last 2 times I was in it. But this number 5, I might have gotten to 4 this time, but it certainly felt like I was closer this year than last time. But this year I have ideas,
mm-hmm.
and I know where my story is going,
mm-hmm.
And I feel, I'll say it, I feel kind of as confident with this one as I did when I was defending in the 6-pack challenge.
Uh-huh.
And, take that for what you will, but I know that people knew when I said that I was going to defend in the 6-pack challenge that was a serious thing they knew how much I wanted it. And I think I want this one more than anybody else.
That's fair.
But I certainly that. I think it's certainly, and other people can argue it, but I think I want, because of where my character's been and where I've been lately as a role player, and just how my sort of late summer went, but then how my early winter has gone. I think it would be the completion of a character arc that I'm on with this face turn if I won it. So I think I want it a lot more
Yeah.
than other people.
I mean, I don't consider myself a contender for it, obviously, and as a staff member, I wouldn't, even if people said I should win, I wouldn't win. But I do want to have a good showing, and I do want to make people think I'm a contender. Obviously, I'm not the writer you guys are. You guys are much better writers than I could ever be. But I do want to have a good showing, and I do want to put myself out there as a good contender for it, and make it so that all the shit I've talked over the years is not complete bullshit. I do want to have a good showing. But outside of me and you, who do you think are the biggest contenders, and who do you think could be a surprise big contender?
Purity is certainly a big contender.
Obviously, the winner from last year.
Right. Eric Donovan, if he doesn't do something else that I don't know if I'm supposed to mention or not.
Well, that was good.
Romeo. Yeah, that won't be obvious. Anyway, Romeo, if he loses the belt to whoever. I would always say whoever the loser of the world title match is, right? That's always going to be a major contender. And I think Hyde, because I say Hyde because I think that I know that I'm going to have great stuff, and I know that Chris is going to have great stuff, and I think you could look at the winner of our match and very easily make an argument for that person is going to win the Brawl. So I think if he brings his A game and beats me, which he's definitely capable of doing, as we saw, and I don't even think that this was necessarily his top game. I think we're both going to be stepping it up a couple of levels for a rematch. But if he brings his A game and beats me, then I think he'll win the London Brawl. Unless someone else. But right now, other than me, Hyde would be my favorite.
Hyde, okay. I'm gonna go on this huge ledge right here, and I'm gonna say one of Ryan's characters.
Possible. If he throws that, I would say very possible for Corinne. If he throws all his effort into that one.
That's always something funny about e-fading is how everyone pronounces everyone's names differently. See, you say Corinne.
Yeah.
And I pronounce it Kieran.
Am I pronouncing it wrong? Does Ryan has he given the official pronunciation?
I'm not sure. That's the thing. Is I'm not sure. We'll have to ask him, or hopefully if he, you know what? Let's not ask him. Let's see if he listens to this and gives an answer.
And then writes it phonetically, because I always pronounce the Ker and then the Rin. So
see, I pronounce it Kieran, like the Irish name. Is it Irish?
Yeah, that does sound very Irish, but I think the American pronunciation would be
Corinne,
because you would be you split the syllables between it's one of those ones where the Y acts as a vowel, so that you split it between the consonants, and you have an A-C-C-A syllable. I know this because
that would explain why Kyle Travis thought he was a girl. Is if he pronounced it your way. If he pronounces it my way, I'm like, who the fuck would think he's a girl?
I don't know, but for Corinne, Corinne, I still think is the spelling. I think is more masculine. Because I knew a Corinne who was a girl but did not spell it that way. I'm
not sure. We'll have to see what Ryan says.
Break phonetically.
But at the same time, I said one of Ryan's characters, but I didn't pick Kieran or Corinne or whatever it is, or Robbie Priest. I would say Riot. Yeah.
Riot's always my favorite Ryan character. And as much as I love Zoe, I'm always upset that Riot really could make such a huge splash as a singles wrestler. I don't want to say Zoe's holding him back or anything, because obviously they're the greatest tag team I think of all time, arguably. Certainly Ryan is the greatest tag team wrestler of all time. But
Riot is the most winningest. Go ahead.
I think Ryan's very happy with where that character is and everything.
Yeah.
But Riot RPs are always my favorite of Ryan's role plays.
Yeah, and I think that character is so, or Ryan is so content with Riot being just a tag team wrestler, even though, you know, truth be told, he should probably be boosted up pretty high in singles
He,
competition
he
by
could
now.
at least be North American champion very easy,
I
I
mean,
think.
he's the winningest wrestler in the history of the company.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I think he could very easily be at least North American champion. I think if he were focused on it, he could easily be world champion. But, um, I think the time really, though, to do it was when he was breaking up from Dice.
yeah,
That was easily the best material he had with that character.
yep.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that where he is with that character now, he could break it up and go on that world title run.
I mean, it's
But who
all up to
knows?
him.
It could easily, he could easily, certainly one of those characters that could just come out of nowhere at the London Brawl and win it. You
Yeah.
know,
Only if he wanted to, though. If
if
he wants to put Riot forward in singles competition, then absolutely we would,
yeah,
we would consider it. But if he's fine with him being in the tag team, we're not going to push the issue too much with
right.
Riot, and
He's got five
make
million
a
other
bigger star
characters.
out of someone we don't need to. You know what I mean?
Right. Um, and it a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on winning the London Brawl, but for me, the biggest thing is you won the London Brawl, but you really need to win at Vindication. Another reason why Vindication is the WrestleMania is I think that's when you win the world title at Vindication, that's saying it's I'm the top right there. That's the biggest time to win it.
Well,
Like
yes, but I think the brawl is a big match in itself, just because to win it you have to beat basically everyone there minus the
right,
champion. It's saying that you are the best out of basically everyone, or your writing was the best out of basically everyone. Maybe not necessarily the champion, but you know what? Now we leave that, it creates that, that
I,
could they be better? Were they better?
and you know what? I'm gonna throw down the gauntlet to Purity right here, and just because I know she'll listen to this. Um, I'm always a huge Purity fan, and she knows that, and everybody knows that, and everybody's a huge Purity fan, I think. But for me, it was great character, great big win for the London Brawl. But I've said it before, and I'd said it to her. I'd say it to her, and I'll say it to her right now. I do not consider Purity to be main event, or at least not as main event as other wrestlers, because even though she won the London Brawl, she didn't finish, and that's like there's your character getting a big push, but you need to eventually be able to finish, and I as until she's it's almost for me with Purity, it's weird because she's done so much, and yet that's what holds her back for me
Mm-hmm.
in a way. Is winning the London Brawl was big, but it also holds her back for me, and it will be because she hasn't won the world title yet. And when she wins that world title, which is not a matter of if, but when, she'll, as long as she keeps at it, she'll get it at some point because she's really talented. But it's not until she finally gets, just like Romeo needed to get over the hump of finally defending the world championship.
Mm-hmm.
I think even more so, Purity needs to get over the hump of finally winning the world championship.
I mean, I wouldn't say she's not main event just because she hasn't won the title. I mean, I would call Kieran main event because he was going for the title and he almost won the title. It was very close. So to call him not main event just because he hasn't won it, to me, doesn't sound fair. But at the same time, I appreciate the fact that in e-fetting we can manipulate people up and down the cards, and I don't think of it as a slight. If Purity is going for the world title for 4 months and doesn't end up getting it, and then we drop her down and she's fighting for the no limit championship, I don't think that's a slight to Purity. I think it's a tip of the cap to the rest of the Fed, saying, you know what, you're all main eventers and you're all have these capabilities, and I think on any given show anyone can beat anyone if you're
I
truly at
agree.
your best.
I agree. And I always, that's one of the things I really love about New Era is we, there's, there's so much room for movement. And you get a lot of feds where it's like the same 2 or 3 people competing for the world title over and over again.
Mm.
And while I would say yes, if you look at last year, it was mostly me versus Romeo or Eric, and then Purity won the London Brawl and Vindication. But even then, afterwards, it was me versus Romeo, and then Romeo versus Eric again, and sort of the title picture revolved around 3 people. But at the same time, New Era has so much more opportunity to break into that cycle,
Yeah.
right? You have the London Brawl. Before last year, before the London Brawl, Romeo still had to win a fatal 4-way to be a number 1 contender,
Yeah.
right? So that was very open. And then we have the Fear Itself tournament, and then we have the 6-pack challenge, which is 5 people right there, but expanded out with qualification matches.
Right.
Everybody really getting into it. Then the Secret Standard tournament, which is my baby, by the way. That's my proudest accomplishment. As much as I've done roleplay wise, creating the Secret Santa tournament was.
It's your excuse to get 3 submissions added onto your fact sheet per night.
You listen. I think the only submit. I have 2 submissions in the Secret Santa tournament history, and I wrote neither of those matches. And I could have. I wrote me versus what's his name, the Haunted Hunter, Jesse something. And you know what? If I knew how things were going to turn out, I would have.
Uh-huh.
I would have made him tap out. But I thought I liked that character. I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to put him over, even in defeat, and make him look really good. And I regret not just kicking his ass. But
well, you know what? You made a good point in the fact that we have so many opportunities to get into the main event, and it's also great that we have these guys in the main event. But at any time, we could cycle someone else in there because we have so many former champions on our roster that really haven't been in the title picture for a while. I mean, Robbie Priest, you have Raw, Bomb Track was here, Nightmare.
I'm still so sad that Greg. I know that was Greg's plan, and I knew his plan was just to come back and finish his thing with Eric and then leave. But I'm very sad by that.
Yeah, me too. But you know what? Greg's got shit going on in his real life, and he's got things.
I understand.
And he's got a lot of positive things going on in his life, so I completely understand. It's not. And like he said, Bomb Track is no longer going to be wrestling, but that doesn't mean he's gone. We could still work the character, and just like we work in Troy Turner and fucking Travis Blaine made an appearance at the anniversary.
That was I did not expect you guys to do that. That was really, really nice to see.
Yeah, I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad you said that because me and Stone had talked about that for a while. And like, hey, you know what? We'd like to move. We'd like to get Travis involved in something. Just something small. Give a little tip of the cap, and then we were wondering, should we put him into one of the awards? And then we were thinking, how would people react to that? And I completely forgot about it until right now. But I guess you were receptive to it.
It was my, as I said in my feedback, that one was my second favorite segment of the night. Travis Blaine and that little curtain call of his, which was just fantastic. My favorite being the Owen Martin Rookie of the Year segment with Mark, and I thought because that did the most individually of any of the segments on the show.
Well, that was the most segment.
It was the most segment. That is very true. And then I liked just the little stuff with Corinne and Romeo to set up their match. I mean, which is not one segment, but there was so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and like I said, I did wish we had more segments in that show. I think we're gonna push towards more coming forward. Like I said, I'm gonna talk to people, and hopefully we'll get stories going that are beyond just what we have planned already with the titles and whatnot. Let's get some side stuff going.
And I liked my segment. I wrote with before the intro before Stahl versus Hyde because I thought that had some little stuff. I like that this feud with Cam that I have going. That should hopefully build to something big. I very much like this feud with Legion that I have, and Cam specifically, and Hyde of course specifically, and then hopefully Purity at some point whenever she frees up. And I thought that segment with Raw having to present the award to Stahl and reluctantly handing it over, and then being really happy about Hyde coming out and demolishing Stahl right there. It was great little moments. Um, and that was honestly, I honestly felt, I said honestly twice, and then
Mm-hmm.
again, whatever. Um, I felt like of all the matches on the show, mine versus Hyde had the best, most consistent build because it was something that had been building since before Challenger Series. Even that first time that I faced him, and Raw came in and demolished Stahl to get a count-out victory for Hyde, and then that built towards Challenger Series with Hyde
Yeah.
attacking Stahl.
Well, I think it helps too because I mean, Chris wrote the match for that. So I
Yeah,
mean, it's a very personal thing when you're writing your own matches and stuff. Not to say that because he wrote it, Hyde went over or anything like that. The plan was the plan.
oh,
Um,
I mean, and I certainly honestly feel like Stahl went over in the end. I mean, yeah, I
right, you're
lost,
right.
but I chased Hyde off at the end, and at the same time, I've been very protected for a loss because I've always had Stahl with his rib injuries that I've been selling since Challenger Series.
Yeah,
So I knew I could take it, and I was it was nice to he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to put me over like that. He could have easily not done that,
yeah.
and still built to a rematch. But it was nice to see that.
But you definitely get better quality. Not to say that you don't get quality, but you definitely get better quality when the person writing the match has some sort of stake in it, or
Hmm.
just a absolute understanding of what's going on. You know,
Or when Purity is writing it, because she
because
writes.
Purity takes the time to research and understand everything going on and can implement all the continuity into it that you require. See, I wrote the Dominique Jean Pierre versus Adam Jones fight because I knew what the plan was, and I knew because I had a hand in creating it. So those aren't necessarily my characters, but I understood what was going on with it,
Like,
and I could convey that into the match, and I'm not sure if I told Cam to write that match that it would come off the same way, you know.
mhm. And
Um,
I wrote. I mean, like I wrote Tommy Zeller versus Purity Solanas a couple of weeks ago.
mhm.
And that was one of my favorite matches that I've ever written. Honestly, getting getting to really understand those two characters, and that that spot at the end, um, when she goes through that table, it's one of my favorite spots of
See, but you
all
did you
time.
did infuse yourself into that match.
Well, I did only because Purity asked me to.
Yeah.
That
Let's
was
talk about let's talk about that a little bit because it was funny to me because I knew that spot was happening. You told me before that match, correct?
Yes, I'm sure I did because Purity and I planned it, and then I
Yeah.
kind of forgot about it while I was role playing, and then I didn't role play in time to technically make the new Friday night deadline.
Yeah.
So it probably shouldn't have happened, and it didn't get picked up, I guess, when it was posted, which is why it's redacted now. And
Well,
I would have
you
totally,
know what? No, I purposely did not tell anyone else and then let them post the show with that match in there to see if they even noticed it.
I would have been totally fine if I would have understood if they took that spot out. Honestly,
I think you know
uh,
what, but the fact was, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but you and Purity came up with this idea as the champion, and you, neither of you staff, to give yourself a quick,
it was
and I
yeah.
and,
I mean,
and I totally
it was
understand it for storyline purposes, but I
yeah.
think
It was never about actually being No Limits champion.
yeah,
I mean, I love that title; it's great, but it was about me building my feud with Purity.
yeah,
That's this long term thing that we've got going,
yeah,
and my feud with Legion, and then obviously my feud with Hyde and having him take me out.
but
And I got writing Hyde just absolutely kicking Stahl's ass
yeah.
was my favorite part to do about that segment.
And I,
Um,
you know what? And I think I think it was fine being in it and everything, and even putting it on the title history would have been fine had you RP'd before the end of the Friday night window, the deadline for Friday night, because it doesn't justify it. But
yeah,
then I think the way we did it and have Raw strike it from the record
brilliant.
books, I think that was a
It's
genius way
brilliant.
to do it.
I read that. I was like, that's phenomenal. that's the best thing that could have happened. And I even like the little thing that you did with the fact sheet, where it's not that you said, all right, well, and then I guess Purity's reign never actually ended. It's you gave her a new reign and you put the reign in the fact sheet, but it just says redacted.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's brilliant. And it came up again, right? It came up in our role plays with my role plays with me and Hyde that you didn't read, where I talked about Hyde costing me the No Limits Championship.
Uh-huh.
And then in that wonderful third shoot, he goes, "What No Limits Championship? You can say that you did, but like you look at the black and white and you can see you've never done it."
Yeah.
Right? That's what it comes down to. As much as you say you've technically never done it.
See,
And I
because
just thought that was brilliant. So
because
much to work with.
when we brought it up and I said, James Stahl wins the title and loses it in the middle of that match, guys, and they were like, "Wait, what?" And then, some people were like, "Well, what do we do with that? How are we going to get rid of that? Because he did an RP for it, And I'm sitting and we didn't know how we were going to do it. And then someone's like, "Well, let's just edit the match and take it out." And then someone said, "Well, why don't we have Raw, talk to him later and be like, yeah, you didn't actually win that. Like, it doesn't exist anymore." And that was a much better way. Not only because it doesn't, discount all your hard work writing the match or anything like that. It keeps it involved, but it furthers the story and it gives you more fodder to use. And I think that's the best thing is everything in this game can be rolled out into something else and be used for your benefit. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
Even
can be.
losing, I think it's and let's talk about losing for a second, because losing ended up being, I think, the best thing to ever happen in my role playing career with James Dahl. Is I went on this terrible, terrible losing streak after Vindication, because I was just in a funk and I was burnt out, and I was working and it just nothing was coming out, and role play wise I was running out of ideas. And
But you need
suddenly
some
I'm
sort of
on this
spark.
losing streak and I go, damn, I've tried doing this before and it's never worked, but this is it. If it's ever going to happen, this is when the James Stahl face turn is going to happen.
See,
I'm
and
going
I
to make
wanted
it
to bring
work.
this up, and I'm glad you brought it up because I've been wanting to talk about this, and I was trying to find a right moment. And
Yeah, same, same.
I want to ask you because of all the terrible shit that Stahl has done as a heel. Like when I heard that you were trying to make him a face, I was like, "There's no way you can justify this. Like, this is just a guy that the crowd will not get behind." So how do you think you did it?
I think it's so. I've tried. People have known. I've tried doing face turns with James Stahl at least 2 or 3 times. Right. The first one was Secret Santa. The first Secret Santa that I won, Mark had. That one came out of nowhere. I wasn't even trying to. That was all Mark. That wasn't me at all. Um, but again, it comes out of great when you have such a heel character. You need a great loss to come back
Humble you?
from, to make to you need loss to really give you that new place that you can start an arc from. So the first time I ended up sort of doing a face turn was it was I before Secret Santa I had just lost the endurance challenge at I just lost the endurance challenge at Evolution no Challenger Series.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote this again early role play. It was the first one. It was the one that won me Secret Santa, and it was I love it. It's one of my favorite role plays I've ever written. It's one of my best. It was always Mark's favorite of mine. Called 5 Stages of Losing a Television Championship Match,
Mm-hmm.
and go back and read that one. It might be the best thing still that I've ever done.
Hmm.
So worth a read. And what's odd about it is it's just a shoot, and people know me and they know that my strength is in my dialogue and my scene work, and my shoot work is a lot typically weaker. But
So is
it's
mine.
shorter,
I'm the exact same way.
it's shorter, but it's kind of perfect. I honestly, which is saying a lot, but it's kind of perfect for what I did with it. Um, and that vulnerability, that's the biggest thing. Heels can be as arrogant as you want them to be, and heels can always take losses and still be arrogant about it. Faces have to have vulnerability, um, and when I let him be vulnerable, Stahl is really good at that, and
Mm-hmm.
I always get a lot of great feedback on RPs where it's like, oh, he seems really human. Thanks.
Yeah, I gave you
Uh,
feedback on that one
yeah,
a couple weeks ago.
my Secret Santa RPs had that this year, where I almost won with that. Um, but so then that first Secret Santa, Mark wrote it, and right away he had Doc Holliday um, lose in the first round to James Stahl by disqualification because I was feuding with Doc, and Doc just broke James Stahl's nose and fractured his jaw with a brass knuckles,
Mm-hmm.
right, to start the show. And then Stahl was fighting from behind the entire rest of the show, so he beat Gregory Bartlett just barely by roll up. And then, it's the big final of the tournament, and before he can even get there, Raw comes out and attacks him right away and just kicks his ass all over the place and gets him in the ring, and you think, oh, this is it. And he doesn't, and that's the moment where realistically, because Raw is such a great heel, and because he did such a despicable thing, but Stahl kicks out of it, that's where the crowd starts to turn. And then by the end of the night, by the end of that match, it's really organic that the crowd is behind James Stahl when he makes Raw tap and wins the North American Championship.
Uh-huh.
And then, I don't know, I mean, maybe I just wasn't ready to handle Stahl as a face character then, but I got sort of thrown into this feud with, not thrown into because the feud with Doc Holliday was something we were always doing since Challenger Series. Um, and I got into this feud, and then Nikki Blaine came along, and her and James Stahl were dating for a bit, and that relationship was always weird because it it started organically enough because someone just happened to post a picture of Ted DiBiase Jr. and AJ Lee together, and it just came about, and that story worked initially, but then just relationship wise, they didn't have enough chemistry going together.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I was a face technically until Bloodlust, and then Romeo Styles cashed in the key to excellence, and that was heel turn that's happening now.
Yeah.
And then that got me to some of my best heel stuff, for a while. But that initial face turn, I think, was ultimately very forgettable because I do typically so much better heel stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well,
then,
you know what? There's really two ways. There's two effective ways to do a face turn. One is you have a heel start canoodling or whatever with a face character. You know, so that would explain the Nikki Blaine thing. That's how you get over as a face.
right,
Two is you just have to get involved with a bigger heel.
hmm
You
which
know.
is what we're seeing now. But I tried to go. What happened was I tried to do a face turn late in my title run, specifically when he was facing Eric Donovan, because I thought Shane was doing a lot of sort of heel stuff, and he ultimately did take that character heel for a short while,
Mm-hmm.
right when he came back after Bloodlust. But I feel like that was a moment where if Shane and I had better communication, and I was probably forcing some stuff on Shane that he wasn't ready to do yet, where we could have done a double turn. I
Yeah.
always felt like
Those
I
are
felt like
tough.
I always felt like Bloodlust was sort of building toward a double turn that maybe I sort of was sort of like a half turn in each of our directions.
Yeah.
So I
Double
always
turns are
felt like
tough.
they are, and I always thought like Shane was doing a half turn toward heel, and I sort of did a half turn toward face. But it was good, but not whatever. And then I versed Romeo, and I tried to keep it be face but it's so hard, especially against Romeo, for Stahl to be. It, the biggest problem with my second attempt was that people weren't selling it.
Uh huh.
You know,
Yeah.
I was trying to push Stahl as starting to go face, but nobody was selling it at all. Like even I'm doubting it, but maybe it's possible. Like I wasn't even getting that from anybody.
See, and that's kind of the skepticism that I had when I heard that you were trying to go faces. I was like, dude, that character is heel. You know, once you
Right.
start seeing, because I wasn't sure if you would be able to write him with all these vulnerabilities, like you said, a face needs. And I read a piece, and I was like, you know what, he is getting those vulnerabilities, so it does make sense. Before that, I had doubts. I think you could pull it off here, and like I said, you need a bigger heel to be
Right.
up against, and Legion is definitely that.
Yeah, which I have now. Like it's so weird because against Eric after Fear itself, I busted out literally two of the most heelish promos I've ever done, where James Saul has this weird pseudo sexual scene with his mom in my first one, and then in the second one he beats the shit out of his crippled dad. But at the same time, and Cam pointed it out to me when he read it, he was like, I loved watching James Stahl play catch with his dad. There was something about that I just got lost in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something writing that relationship with the father and son that I hadn't really thought about before.
Mm-hmm.
That said, wow, they have this really great relationship. And I just had this moment where they almost made everything okay. Like, where you felt like they could have just hugged and that could have been it. But then, James Saul gets on this kick about not wanting to be like his dad, who's, crippled. Um, and it just, but then getting to bring the dad back as like the one person in James Saul's family who accepts him no matter what,
Yeah.
allowed me to continue that story in a satisfying way and be like, can I accept, the interesting thing I think I had going with my Secret Santa RP was, can James Saul actually accept someone accepting him?
Yeah. And I picked that up reading it too.
Like it's like because he's been so angry this entire time, but how so that's really for the longest time that's all he's known is just being angry at people.
Mm-hmm.
But here's his dad who he put in the hospital, but still says, I'm going to accept you no matter what, even though he spent all these years having this completely different perception of his dad as someone who is never really there for him. And suddenly he's there and he's like, I don't know if I can handle you being here, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And I think it's the I'm going to try that is the moment that makes him a face.
Yeah, I agree.
He could have walked away from that and not even attacked him. He could have not attacked him but just walked away and he'd still be heel.
Mm-hmm.
Or he could have said, I'm sorry, Dad, I love you, right there. And technically, maybe he's a face, but it would definitely not feel right. It wouldn't feel organic.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been enough.
Right, but the I'm going to try. That's a different, right? Like saying I love you like that just out of the blue is not vulnerable. Being able to say I'm going to try to let you into my life, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sort of acceptance that shows that you're vulnerable.
And it's a process, and it shows that you're on the road in this process, but you're not all the way there yet.
Right. And dramatically, that gives me like a lot to do. Like you'll read this one. He sort of has this intervention with Sam's faction is one of my favorite characters to write ever, and James Stahl's girlfriend, who I pull in at different points, and I like her a lot. I like her better than I like the relationship he had with Nikki Blaine, and I think I'm going to enjoy exploring that a little more. That was a big reason why I won at Vindication. I think was because of her.
Uh-huh.
But it's where he's trying to. It's that battle of, does he listen to his dad? Can he listen to his dad? What happens if he pushes his dad away? Does he want to push? How far does he want to push away? And I'm going to enjoy exploring that for, the foreseeable future.
Right.
It's great because for the longest time I was struggling and I had nothing to do, but then Challenger Series, even though I lost to Cam, that was really the moment where I kind of regained my creative spark. And you saw Secret Santa, I almost won. and it's right now I feel creatively this is my favorite time I've ever had writing James Dahl.
Uh-huh.
Except for maybe Challenger series where I was defending there and I was just super fucking heel. I thought that was the best I ever was at being heel. Was that match? Other than that, this is my favorite time writing.
Well, good. I mean, we're going straight into the the London Brawl's coming up, so this is a good time to feel that you're at your best. But it is almost 3:00. We've been at this for 2 hours. We don't want to keep everyone hanging on our every word all day.
I've got to eat dinner too, so this works out.
Exactly. So, Mr. Will, thank you for coming on the podcast with me, talking some New Era. Like I said, first podcast. We're going to see who else wants to do this. I'm going to post this on the Out of Character board as soon as I get it all edited and spiffy for you. And just throw in there if you want to come on here and talk to me. I'm pretty much open right now until my radio job starts in a couple weeks. So just let me know. Again, Will, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. It was great. Go NEWera!
Yes, sir. All right. We will talk to you later. Have a good one.